Hello everybody, I am Jack, this is Chris. You should know us from our weekly Pain in the Arts podcast episode by now. This is a special bonus one. We've had so many questions sent in.
300 plus.
Yeah, so we've decided as a little treat to you from us on this bank holiday Monday, we are going to do a quickfire Q&A round of questions where I'm going to ask some of the questions and we'll both quickly try and answer them. Might sling the iPad over to you, you can ask some to me.
Oh, sounds like fun.
Yeah, and we'll just go from there. And hopefully we can just sort of get a lot of like Q&As done quickly so that people can have the answers they've been waiting for with bated breath.
I am ready for it, Jack. Let's go for it.
Let's go for number one. Okay, number one.
Go for it.
So let's go for number one. I was reading the intro thinking, that's not a question. There's no question in that. I was reading our intro notes.
Yeah, that doesn't
Yeah.
work. Yeah. Okay.
So question one is from someone called Moira,
Okay.
who has asked, we're a venue and we're noticing a big shift in our customers' spending. We're worried it'll get worse and there's no funding to plug the gap. How can we encourage sales in our venue? So they said that they're a gallery and a small gift shop in a small rural town in Wales.
Oh, okay, so that is going to be a bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
There's probably no more funding available for things like that. So I would quite easily say it's a challenge. You're not alone in that. 100%. That is a very big issue that's facing a lot of people. And I do think in a lot of occasions, yes, it's easy to look at, let's look at a coffee shop. Let's bring people in to get them to spend, to literally spend longer in the venue.
Yeah.
I think that's a very easy
I would
option.
also say, in terms of like quick fire, without going into too much detail, if you don't think you've got the skill or the finances to put a coffee shop in yourself, subcontract it to someone and charge them rental space.
Yeah.
That'll provide you revenue.
Yeah.
Also, look a little outside the box in your gallery shop. One thing that like we're noticing at the moment, we're going to be going to print with a secondary style of magazine this year, hopefully. And we've been speaking to a couple of places like gallery shops and things like that to see if they would want to stock it, just to put the feelers out of there, because it's not something they normally sell.
No.
Overwhelmingly, so many of them have said yes, and will advertise in it.
100%.
So, look for other produce that you can sell within the store that isn't just necessarily what you've already got in it. Look for magazines, look for that type of content in the arts that people want.
Basically, expand your offering slightly, but do it where, I know obviously costs are obviously a big factor there. Do definitely consider sale or return.
Yeah.
Lots of artists, I mean, I know it's not incredible to do this to an artist in a certain way, but a lot of artists, one here who will most definitely have a lot of stock that is sat around that could 100% be put into somewhere that would help bolster your stock levels and would probably provide you with an income stream, and then you are selling it on that person's behalf. And okay, you're taking a modest commission for it or whatever it may be, and for one thing that would be off someone like Jack's shelves where there's a lot of ceramics there, and for the flip side of it, then you have stock on your shelves and you haven't actually paid for it.
Final note before we move on to the next one, hold events in your shop. I know you probably do it in your gallery space, but do it in the shop. Hold events, have a couple of bits of nibbles out, some glasses of Prosecco and stuff like that. Have someone doing poetry, reading parts, reading a segment from their book.
Comedy night.
Comedy open mic night. Hold it in the actual shop space, because it lets the people who would not normally maybe come to your shop, they come in for what you hold in there, see the stuff you've got on the shelves for sale, they'll come back and they'll buy stuff.
Quick fire.
Yeah, quick fire, Chris.
Okay, thank you, Myra. Question 2.
Okay, so this is from Derek and Andy.
Derek and Andy, hello.
We're concerned about the new terrorism law coming in next year and how it'll impact our festival site in Mid Wales. Any thoughts? So this is Martin's law they're referring to?
Well, it's known as Martin's, so it's Terrorism Protection of Premises Act.
It is a new thing, and I know creatives get a little bit jittery around legislation and things like that.
And they're fair to be honest with you. Legislation at the moment is out there. It is still to be refined. It is not. It's set to be in effect, I believe. Don't quote me completely on this, but I believe the law comes into force in early 2027. So that would be next year. And at the moment, there is some information available out there. There's Protect UK are providing free training. Arts Council Wales is also providing free training, and that training is just, what is it? And are you impacted by it? Because obviously all of the legislation is not yet completely known. We know that SIA, which regulate the bouncers and security people that you see on doors, they're going to be the people who will administer it. So what I would say is go and have a look at Protect UK. You can Google that. Also, there's a lot of information with the All Wales Police Counter-Terrorism Service. They have a lot of information sat there, and the Welsh Government are about to, I believe, launch a series of webinars that will be coming out later this year as well. So definitely take a look at that one.
Okay, and I've got nothing to add to that at all. Thank you very much, Chris. Next question.
Anytime.
So question 3 is from Anonymous. You mentioned that local authorities have funding pots for art projects. Where will I find them? Lots of different places, to be totally honest, Anonymous, and councils all work differently, which frustrate me, because if it was if it was the same system, everyone would know the answer to it and you wouldn't have to go and find it. When we were at the cultural festival celebration in Monmouthshire a couple of weeks ago, the mayor for Monmouthshire County Council did say that you can even as easily as just go and contact them through email, or pop in and speak to somebody and ask about the application. That would be how I would suggest a lot of you go around this, is check the website, see if you can find anything, but sometimes they have other pockets of money stashed away that they can redistribute to different things, and arts is one of them. So go in, make an appointment, say that's what you want to make the appointment for, or back and forth through email if you can't go in person, and I would find out that way.
Don't forget the town councils and county councils, 2 different pots. So definitely take a look at the town council, and also take a look at the local authority as well, because they will both usually have 2 separate pots of funds that you can potentially access depending on circumstances. But yes, there will be pots of money. Googling it is not always going to give you the best answer, to be totally honest with you. I completely agree with Jack. Go in and ask them, because you will get
personable. The answer. Also, don't go to local authorities that are already going to be inundated, because the answer is just going to be no. Look for areas that maybe don't get that much attention when it comes to the arts, and bring it to that area, because those local authorities will welcome you with open arms, that you want to bring your work to their local area and exhibit it in their local area,
100%.
or engage with the community, especially if it's something like a film.
100%.
So go and shop around different local authorities and see where can your work be best placed, somewhere that is a little outside the box, or
There you go, Anonymous. Thank you very much.
Okay, so question number
we're powering
4.
through.
I told you we are going to power through these. I'm just looking to see how many have we got.
I think we got 10 or 12, something like that.
Okay, so the next one is from Taylor. We talk so much about educating artists into diversifying and keeping up. What's your thoughts on educating audiences too? How do we get audiences in Wales to engage with the arts?
Come on.
That's a bit of a, I don't know if I like that question, because, and I'll tell you for why.
Okay.
Because yes, we do need to educate audiences in certain things when it comes to things like diversity and productions and stuff like that. We talked about this in previous podcast episodes, but I do think that art is only half completed up until the point when it's then viewed by an audience. That's sort of the completing of the circle. And if a reaction or a response or a criticism you get is something you don't like, you kind of just need to accept the fact that that's part of closing the circle, and it's always about learning and moving on and seeing how people have perceived things. So I think, is that what they mean by that they need to educate audiences?
I think as well. I don't know if I've taken a slightly different stance when I heard it, where I was thinking, how do we educate to get them to want to go and experience art? Because I think a lot of people are, we've talked about this previously, where a lot of people will only go and engage with
like known IP,
known intellectual property. So I do think it's incredibly important to go and go to experimental or unknown theatre or unknown exhibitions, because then you do see actually the very best, if I'm totally honest with you. It's something that you wouldn't traditionally go and see. Often you find that it is the best in terms of outcome. So for me, it would be, I think it's less about educating and it's more about clever marketing. And I know that sounds really generic and woolly in that sense, but I think if you're able to showcase what you actually offer in the most engaging and thought-provoking way, it will bring people in. And I do find with a lot of exhibitions, art exhibitions, music, and also very small theatre productions, that sometimes the press images and the content actually doesn't come out until 2 or 3 days after the show has taken place.
Yeah.
And really, you need a showcase, you need something, you need a pre-visualization, you need images, you need photos, you need videos, you need everything. You need all of this marketing stuff done well in advance so that it can go out in advance to help the ticket sales. And I do think that's
and don't
important.
underestimate the fact that you know, like I said, we've all got smartphones with cameras on them. Do a
Yes.
face to camera, do a little mini tour,
Yeah.
show people behind the scenes of what it is that you're making or what's
Yeah.
being put into production, so that people can just get a bit of a taste of it before they commit to it. And I think that is something that, you know, even big productions don't do it sometimes.
No.
They just put pictures out there, or they have one illustration for a production and it doesn't show what it is. And just, if people can't grasp it instantly, you've got to give them more. You've got to give them full imagery. You've got to give them videos. You know, if it's a music performance, give them a little snippet of a song that they can listen to.
Can I give you a random example of that? Barnum in the Wales Millennium Centre recently. I think a lot of people thought it was going to be The Greatest Showman.
Yeah, and then when they realised it was more Cirque du Soleil than The Greatest Showman, they left disappointed. But people going into it knowing it was very circus heavy, they were actual circus performers on the stage, they would have loved it.
Yeah, I think, and for me, the only reason I knew about it, I mean, I'd never seen The Greatest Showman, I still haven't, but what I have done is I've interviewed one of the cast members in advance, and that gave me that information and getting that out there. So I think there needs to be more of that. So I think from an that's what I've taken from that question is that's the way to educate an audience. So
use social media, use the fact that you can reach out and talk to audiences for the first time of them knowing who you are and learning about you, and instantly step into your world, know what your art form is about, know what they're going to get from you, and that'll help people know. Even people who haven't met you through social media, the way things like SEO algorithms on Google and things like that work, if they Google you, your social media posts will come up on that Google search result, and then they'll find you that way, and they'll be like, okay, so this is what I can expect if I go there.
Yeah. There you go. Quick fire, quick fire.
So that's Taylor's question answered. Question number 5, and then I'm going to sling the iPad over to you.
Go on then.
So this is from Eleanor. How can I get my kids off their iPads and into the arts?
I assume
Burn
this
the
isn't-
iPads, snap them over your knee, throw them away. No, actually, my sister is a really good example of this. She limits the time that her kids have iPads. She hides them because otherwise they would be on them all day.
Yeah.
And she just what's my sister saying? Go out and touch grass.
Yes.
Go out and touch grass, and she just takes them out and does things with them. If it's a rainy day, she's always got things like colouring books and pencils and paints, and you know, have an area of your house where you're not too precious about it getting a little bit dirty or messy, and show, you know, some kids don't like to be creative at home because they know their parents will shout at them for making a mess. Give them a space. No, but give them a space that can be a messy space that they can just go and do those things in.
I also think there are so many free activities out there. Go and find those free activities. A lot of them are probably on your doorstep, and a lot of them are probably funded. So I would definitely take a look at those.
Like, you know, this we know from like looking through past episodes that we've got quite a broad audience in and out of Wales, but to be hyper focused, places like Newport Riverfront, they do such a wide range of activities, and they've just put a post up on their socials about all of the free activities they're doing over the Easter holidays, and they're all very creatively based things. So go to museums, go to galleries and theatre spaces, because they usually offer things like that. The Wales Millennium Centre, undoubtedly, not that I've seen anything of theirs, to be honest, on socials, but they undoubtedly will be having something going on.
Oh yeah, 100%. They've got a community team, haven't they?
Yeah.
So there'll be plenty of, especially arts and creative venues. They will always have something going on over half term. And if they haven't, it's a very poor offering. But at the same time, they should have something going on that's community focused. So definitely head there. And that will, if it's engaging and if it's fun and thought provoking, it'll get your kids naturally off their iPads anyway. So I think that's where it needs to start. Get them out the house.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
Quick fire.
Over to you, Chris.
Where are we? We're on Anne.
We're on question 6.
Question 6 from Anne. Is there too much emphasis on the Welsh language elements in performance? Okay, I'm Welsh but don't speak Welsh, and sometimes I feel left out. Join the club, Anne. Sometimes that is the case for me.
I do understand where Anne is coming from, and I've said this a few times to people, and it is usually something that I will say in a pub when we're out with friends, and it causes a huge heated debate, and I love it. Yeah. There's an element of classism when it comes to the Welsh language.
Yes, there
where
is now.
wealthy or middle class sort of people speak Welsh and they're from a certain area of Wales and they grew up with it as their first language. Now, me growing up in the 90s, there just wasn't that much emphasis on Welsh. It just wasn't. It
Growing
was
up in the valleys, I would agree with you.
and you grew up sort of like almost like half a decade before me, really. So it's that has gone
We're
on
gonna
for a
fall
long
out.
time, where there's not been that. Welsh has been there as a subject for a tick box exercise, but it's just not been pushed in the same way.
Yeah.
The emphasis on the language wasn't given in the way it should have been. Our parents didn't speak it from home, so we were just weren't in the sort of space
weren't in
to
the zone
learn
for
it.
it, no.
There's a really good language learning technique that the CIA teach their operatives, which is a technique where you're fully immersed in it. And that's how, CIA operatives learn foreign languages really quickly, because they totally immerse themselves in it and hear nothing but that language for weeks. And that's what helps them sink it into their brain. So if you're not hearing it at home, if you're not hearing it a lot at school, just for 1 hour a week when you have your Welsh class, you're never going to leave school speaking Welsh.
You know my Welsh in school? So I only had 3 years of Welsh, which was 1 hour a week, and it was taught by a German-speaking teacher who didn't speak Welsh,
Well,
genuinely.
that's bad.
It is. It is.
But my Welsh teachers were Welsh language speakers. First language was Welsh for both of them, I think. But it just wasn't. It was never enough. And then by the time I got up to high school or comprehensive school, wherever you're from in Wales, it went from having 2 hours a week to then you could drop it and do half course, and then it went back to an hour a week. And a lot of us at this point were so through with the fact that we couldn't speak the language and weren't speaking it at home, that we just abandoned all cause for it and jumped ship.
I do think, I mean, going back to Anne's question, feeling left out, yes, I do agree. I would think what needs to happen, I do agree that I think there's a little bit too much. I think there was. I don't think it exists very much now.
I think we're balancing out nicely now.
Yeah, I think there was a big emphasis on the Welsh language. I think it's quite nicely mellowed, and I think now we've got this nice little integration of the Welsh language, which we saw very nicely in that one thing that went on in the Western Studio. Can't think what it was. It was like a horror in the Wales Millennium Centre about 2 years ago.
Yeah, it was based in
Pontypool.
Pontypool, yeah.
Yes, Pontypool, that's right. And it was part in Welsh, part in English, and I think that stood out for me as I can understand what's going on enough that I feel immersed in the language.
Yeah.
So it didn't make me feel left out. So I think if you're clever with the Welsh language in terms of production, and you've got this nice integration of English and Welsh, I think it actually sits quite nicely. Yeah. So I think the lean is actually quite nicely balanced now. I do think there's work to be done, but I also think the work that needs to be done needs to come from us as Welsh people who are not Welsh speakers. I do think we need to start moving towards the centre a little bit and start learning the language, and that's something that I would like to move forward.
I think it's definitely something that we've got quite. I try not to be an overly political person, but I think we have got exciting times ahead of us for Wales, because chances are we're probably going to get a brand new political party in power soon, and I think whoever it is that ends up in power, I think one thing that it'll be their first time in the big seat, and they'll have a lot to prove in the country of Wales. And I think one thing they need to address is the fact that there was this gap in education between different class systems, which meant that within our own small country, we were fractured and divided by speaking two different languages.
100%.
And the best way to fill that gap is to make it easy and make it accessible for us to learn our native language again, make us fluent in it again, make it something that we want to engage with. If we wanted to immerse ourselves like a CIA operative in the language, we've got one TV channel to choose from, and that is it.
Yeah.
So we need more stuff out there. It's why I love actors like Eve Miles, because she does so much in English and Welsh, and she did that TV series where she did both series simultaneously, filming in English and in Welsh, Keeping Faith. That we loved that. We binged our way through that then watched it in Welsh straight after, and because we knew the story, we were picking up on things that were being said, that words we maybe never knew.
Very clever.
Think more stuff like that. People like BBC Wales, they need to be putting emphasis on it. It's got to be a multi-pronged approach to pull us as a country back together again.
You know who commissioned that? Was our friend Nick. Yes.
Well, Nick did a very good job. Nick Andrews.
It is. Yes. Nick Andrews, indeed. Yes.
But yes, thank you for that, though. And it is something that we both agree with, and it's something 100%. That we always think about, and keep an eye out for smart ways to integrate the Welsh language without making people feel lost or left out.
Back to quickfire. Question 7 is from, I was going to say Roy. It's Ray. I'm not into modern art. I like the classics. Okay. Is anyone in Wales making more traditional art anymore, and where can I find it? Oh, that's a question for you, Jack.
Yeah, there's loads of people out there doing it, but I would say to Ray, don't dismiss the modern art, because the
I love a
modern
bit of
art
modern
is
art.
so many. You look at people. Her name has just fallen out of my head. It's because we're quickfire. Janice Chaplin.
Yes, Janet Chaplin.
Janet
Yeah.
Chaplin.
Yes.
How did her name fall out of my mind? Now, you can tell by looking at her work that she is trained and skilled to a level that she could do the traditional landscapes
Yes.
to an impeccable level.
100%.
But she breaks those boundaries, and she uses bright colours, and she
Yeah.
uses sometimes different techniques that are incorporated in the more traditional ones. You sometimes see her paintings on really small, thin scales instead of your typical landscape sort of formats.
She's almost a gateway from the classic into the very contemporary.
Yeah,
And I like
which
that.
is shown by the fact that her work is sold by so many people
Yeah.
who need and want it in their home.
Yeah.
So I would say they're everywhere. You've only got to go to the museum to see
You can see classics there.
the classics
Yeah.
there, and they will always be the places that you'll see the classics. And then you can go to other galleries like Made in Cardiff. You can go
Albany
to
Gallery.
Albany Gallery. Albany Gallery usually have a really good showcase of classic art.
Yes.
But again, they fuse it with modern art and
Yeah.
contemporary art as well.
Usually what I would say there is I would go and start following, if you're on sort of Facebook or Instagram, things like that, start following a lot of galleries, because what you'll find is when their new exhibitions come out, they will post photos of what is about to come out. And then you can say, well, I like that one, I'm going to go there. And as a result, if you go into that gallery, inevitably you're going to end up on their mailing list or something like that, and they will normally have very similar themes or very similar art styles in those galleries. So what you'll find is you'll probably like this one gallery, especially if you go to the opening night or something, and then you'll continue moving forward with that group as a result. And those artists will be traveling across to new venues and new galleries, and you'll end up going to those galleries as well, and then obviously you'll widen your net in that sense. So
Yeah.
I would say start by going online. That's usually the answer, isn't it?
But I will say, as a final note there, though, to Roy.
Ray, sorry, my mistake.
I'm never going to remember your name now, unfortunately. Just don't dismiss an art form. There's nothing worse than it. I'm the first person to say that at the top of my list of things that I am not a huge engager of is dance. But I won't dismiss it. And I will go and I will go to dance performances. And that means I leave a lot of the time surprised and shocked that I've enjoyed it, because I used to have these, long story, it goes back to school when I was forced into things like that and I hated it. But yeah, don't dismiss it. Go in with an open mind, and I think you'll be surprised of what's out there.
We are actually going to see a dance in the next couple of weeks, which is, I think I only sent you the press release for it earlier, which is a comedy dance.
Oh, it's
comedy
ballet.
Yeah, that looks quite cool.
And I know I'll love it.
Yeah, it's going to be great fun. Anyway, moving on from Ray, we're on to question 8. We are powering through these. Rhiannon, I'm a potter. Oh, this is one for you again.
Wait, what does she mean by potter, though? Potter as in potter's about, or potter as in mud?
Or a Harry Potter fan. Could be either.
We don't talk about that.
No. I'm a potter and I love the podcast. Our favourite person already. Is there a place to sell my pottery that isn't Etsy? Ooh.
Does she mean online?
I would assume by that point I would assume online. But I would, if I were you, Rhiannon, thank you for the question. I would be certainly starting to look at going back to the real world.
Yeah.
Go back, take your I know obviously Etsy, international platform, things like eBay and things like that will always have an international platform. Sometimes it is fantastic to have these things on your doorstep. And I will sometimes go into a shop, look at something and think, oh, that's really, really quirky, or that's quite good. And look at it and realize that it's made 20 minutes up the road from us, and that will be the decision period for me where I'll think, do you know what, I'm going to buy that.
Yeah, it depends what type of pottery they're trying. Are they quite a production potter? Because if you're a production potter, there are places out there, websites that you can sell your work on, and there's a couple of them called like On the Market is one of them, and then Fair is another one, and it's like Etsy, but it's closed to the public. The public can view your profile and they can view the things you sell, but only wholesale buyers can see it.
Yeah.
And so you upload onto it, you say how much of each stock you've got, what the RRP and stuff like that is. It's quite corporate lingo, if you can sort of get into the mind frame of that. And corporate businesses will buy from it, but it's not corporate in the sense like Tesco and things like that will start stocking this stuff, but it's like the generic gift shops that you see almost on every high street, places like that, coffee shops that have like little farm shops and things in the front of it. They all have access to it because you need to create a trade account in order to access it and see the pricing and contact the buyers or the sellers.
I do think as well, there are versions of, like, as I say, from a production pottery point of view, there are people like Castle Howell that sell pottery.
And they are, I don't think a lot of people would assume to look at them because they're a food wholesaler, but yeah, they also sell like dinnerware for restaurants and stuff like that.
100%.
If you're in a position to, what's this person's name?
Rhiannon.
If you're in a position to, Rhiannon, invest in your own website, put your own shop
100%.
up, and then you can contact people directly then, restaurants, bars, pubs, local gift shops yourself, cutting out the middle person, and just include the link to your website and say, here is my stuff for sale. If you'd like a wholesale price list, let me know, get in contact. I think nothing beats a traditional door-to-door salesman style tactic, but like through email or whatever.
There we go. Some good tips for you there, Rhiannon. I will move us straight on because we have 2 questions left. We have question 9 is from Marcus. What's your thoughts on AI art?
Ooh, I think, and I have quite strong opinions on this, AI is a tool. There's nothing wrong with it. No. It is a tool to be used. It's just like saying that if a writer uses spell checker, then they're not a writer.
Yeah,
exactly, do you know what I mean? It's a technology that's here. We need to learn how to work with it. It's not a replacement. No. And the thing is that the thing that AI takes out of, if you're talking about art, as in like you type into AI, create a watercolor style painting of the Wales Millennium Centre that looks like it's been handmade by an artist. Say you type that into AI and you ask it, that's probably a rubbish prompt for AI, but I don't know. But if you put that in and that's what it creates, and then you get it printed on a canvas and you sell it and say you've made it, great, you're an artist. However, what that does do is it takes away AI takes away the originality, and you can see it a mile off. Like one thing that people always moan about and complain about, rightfully so now, is that when they go to craft markets, they are sick of seeing those 3D printed dragons in eggs because they're like, this isn't craft, this isn't art, this is just push play on a thing and print it. There's no originality there. People can see patterns in things, and originality will trump AI art any time,
100%,
all the time.
I do think that we do need to accept that you will use your intuition, you will use what you like, and you can put as much AI art out there and you can saturate the market with it. But if it doesn't look good, no one's going to buy it, you know? And I think that's the ultimate thing. And I think people will pay for artisan, people will pay for handmade. We know this with, I go back to a few weeks ago when we talked about bread, and you've got mass-produced bread and you've got artisanal bread. There is a place for both. However, 99% of people who value the process and the outcome and the taste and the texture will go for the artisanal one instead, and that's what's going to happen. Or it will be like cream; it will just flow to the top eventually, and we will only end up with the really good, and then we'll end up with the mass. And the mass will be rubbish, but there is a place for it, and it's probably places, like lower end markets side of things, but there will always be a place for handmade, artisanal, and I do think at some point they will cross over, and they will end up in the same venues together, and there will be a place for both. However, I agree with you, it is a tool, but it is not a canvas.
100%. It's a tool to be used to get you to your end goal, not to generate it.
Oh God, we are flying through. This is our final question on, what is this? Quickfire. Quickfire. Question 10 is from Aaron. Can Wales compete with international budgets in the arts? Bigger countries have bigger money. Won't they always overshadow us? Oh, Aaron, you are asking a big question to finish on here.
In short, quickfire, yes.
Yes.
I was going to say in short answer, yes.
Yeah, going back to our previous point, more money equals more exposure. However, what we offer in Wales is something totally different.
We have a unique
Wales-centric
taste to our art because it is so informed by our culture and our language and our heritage, and it is also informed, and it's our unique stamp on a lot of the arts that we do. I think, yes, we are easily overshadowed, but in an age of technology that we're in now, there's a level of thing that you can do that pushes out there. Like I keep a really close eye on the edits, analytics, and the audience that we're reaching and things like that. And honestly, I think I would be hard pushed to find a country that we don't have readers in.
I do think it's incredibly important that Wales has an international voice.
Yeah.
I do think that needs to come from regulation and from government. I do think it needs to come from that level. We do need to be pushing and promoting Wales as to visit it and to interact with it and to know that it's here and put it on the map. That's the role of our government in that sense. However, we can all play a part in that, and I do think we should play a part in that, and we should be really singing and dancing about our country, and we should be incredibly proud of it and pushing it in every single way that we possibly can, including in the arts. And I do think that's a big question for a quick fire round.
That's a very loaded question. I don't know why we decided to have that one in there, because
especially
that could be an entire thing on its own. And I think, it might be something that I might use that as a jumping off point for an article myself.
You might see it later, Aaron.
It is very interesting. I'll quote you and I'll credit you for being the sort of the jumping off point for me, Aaron, because I do think that's a really interesting.
It is.
It's a really interesting point to think about, of how can we overcome the fact that we're always going to be held back by our limited budget that our government feels is necessary for us in the arts. And you look at the comparativeness that even England have.
Yeah, it's huge, isn't it?
It's a huge disparity, and I think it would be interesting to be like, right, okay, if Wales were given a comparable amount, what would their output look like?
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
That's a bigger conversation. Maybe we'll revisit that.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Maybe it'll be something we revisit with other artists who have internationally exhibited and what it took them to get there, and the disadvantages they felt like maybe they had that others didn't.
Let's have the conversation.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that is it from our Bank Holiday edition episode, our special quick fire, which doesn't feel that quick at the moment, but we did power through 10 questions there. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back on Thursday for much more Pain in the Arts. Have a great Easter weekend.
Bye.